Hi everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Shapez Industries. My name is Bins, and in this 12th episode, we are going to try and tackle level 23 after having completed level 22 in the previous episode. Now, the last couple of videos, I always started with a public service announcement or two. Today is going to be no different because I'm going in with a few extra mods that I wanted to talk about. So let's find them in the list. The first extra mod I got. Oh, I love this one. It is so simple, but it is such an improvement to the game. It's called Throwback, and it's by Denger1065, and it just allows me to go back to a previous location I was at with the cursor by pressing the backspace button. That's all it is. It is it's very simple, but it's a in terms of user friendliness, it's so much more fun to play with. I really love that one. And I also got another mod that improves user friendliness by Aman Resu. I suppose you have to pronounce that. And it just gives me some extra key bindings to not just select the category of units with my keyboard, but also the specific variants. So if you are a player that also primarily likes to play with the keyboard and you like your hotkeys, then definitely check out these two mods. But that is all, so nothing life-changing or game-altering, just a slight let's say a gesture towards ease of gameplay, in my opinion. So, with that information, let's dive in, shall we? Now, I do have to admit that while the premise was to go in fully unprepared at the beginning, I feel like the further we advance, the less that is something I am prepared to do, because these shapes are getting more and more complex. And I don't want to spoil the entire video by trying to figure out how these shapes work, right? So what I have done today is I have actually looked at this shape already, made a few pointers, made a few preparations so that we can, I could just stick to talking about this shape for a bit, but not having to, search for the answers myself, as in my opinion, that would make for a pretty boring video. Now, something else I did in preparation of this video is I thoroughly revamped my warehouse, and perhaps that is something I would like to have a look at first. So, my warehouse became bigger and bigger, and it became sloppier and sloppier. So what I have done is I have thoroughly revamped it, and instead of having one warehouse, I decided to split it up into various types of units that belong, to the same rough category, let's say. So I quickly want to go over them to show you what I have in my inventory, and that way you are up to speed as to what I am working with. So the first category is the one of combiners. I have two modules now. I had this one before, which is a dual belt combiner module, but now I added this machine, this ship, which is a 4-belt combiner module. So you have to input 2 sets of 4 belts, and it gives you 4 output belts of the combined shapes right here. So that is a new unit. The second category is that of the cutters. I also have 2 of those. Nothing too particular. A dual belt single cutter where we cut the halves, and a single belt quad cutter. I made sure to put these mini storages right here. What they are going to do is they are going to keep my machines from clogging, because in case you don't know, the cutters will output all of their belts, but if one belt is jammed, then the other outputs will stop outputting because no new shapes will be fed into the cutter anymore. So if you focus on one type on one half of your machine, let's say, and you have the other one stalling because you haven't gotten to it yet, then if those shapes come from one and the same cutter array, then at a given time, these shapes are going to stop flowing. And if you've paid close attention to my previous videos, that has often been the case. So to counteract that, I put these mini storages here, and they should solve the problem. So any excess is automatically trashed right here. That's what I did. I also put the hyperlink, which we unlocked at the end of last episode. I already put it in as a little gimmick because it doesn't really serve much of a purpose. And before we get to today's shape, I will quickly go over the hyperlink with you and what it does, but you will see it in a few locations because, I think it looks cool and I kind of put it in there, okay? We're going to have a look at this later. Let's go to the mixers first. So these are color mixers. A simple one belt color mixer for secondary color. A single belt mixer for white. This is a variation on white. It's a bit more chunky, but it's less long, so it's more compact in a way. Depending on what we want to use, we might want to use this or this. They perform the exact same function. This is a dual belt secondary color merger. So you put 4 belts in, 2 of each color, and you get 2 belts of the mixed output right here. This is a dual belt white mixer. So it requires 2 belts of red, 2 belts of green, 2 belts of blue, and it will output 2 belts of white. And this thing right here is a variation on that same principle. The difference being that this one I actually shamelessly stole from Skimner-Fi off the Discord server, and this one I made myself. And you can see that this one is a little more compact by a few cells, and it looks a little quirkier in terms of setup, whereas this one looks a bit more straightforward. But other than that, they are exactly the same. So we have a bunch of color mixers to choose from depending on what we need. Then let's have a look at the painters. So the painter I had been using up to here was this one. It's a dual belt painter array that uses the double painter. So what it means is that you input 2 full belts of a shape, you input 1 full belt of color, and you get 2 output belts of the colored shape. Because as you know, the dual painter requires half the paint that the other painters do, right? Here, I made a quad belt dual painter. So as we keep needing increasing amounts of shapes, I am always going to create at least 4 belts of input. So I decided to make my modules a little bigger so that I could, just shoot like 4 shapes through and get 4 full belts of output. So I made a bunch of, 4 belt units right here. And then I also decided to make a little layer painter array. This is only 1 belt. I have not found an efficient setup of creating 2 belts, let alone 4. But I thought, since I haven't worked with the layer painter before, let's keep it here for the time being, and then we'll see. So that is my painter warehouse. Then let's go to the smelters. I created a single belt smelter, and here we have a double belt smelter. So 2 belts come in, 2 identical belts, and 2 identical smelted belts come out. Nothing much to say here. That's what it looks like. Yes, and the stackers. Well, I have a bunch of stackers depending on what we might need. So first, let's have a look at this one. This is a bit quirky. I actually like the design quite a lot because it's compact. However, it's only a one belt stacker, right? So 2 belts come in and we get one output, one stacked output. This is a dual belt stacker, so 4 belts come in, 2 of each, and then we get 2 belts of the stacked shape for an output. This is a one belt tri stacker. So instead of stacking 2 belts, this is going to stack 3 belts. I don't know if we need this, but it's there in case we do. Then this is the elongated dual belt stacker. So if you compare it, it does exactly the same as this one, but it's it's a lot longer and straightforward. I think overall this one is the better candidate, but I used this one before because it doesn't require any of the special belt crossing units that we unlocked with the latest research tier. Right, so this is a legacy stacker, double belt that I don't think I will be using a lot from now on, but it's there in case we need it. Next to that is a single belt quad stacker. I don't know if we want to use the quad stacker much, but as with the others, also this is here in case we need it. And now that I look at it, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. I like this better. This looks nicer. So, a quad belt, a one belt quad stacker right here. This is another design. Same thing, one belt. So 4 belts go in and 1 belt comes out, but I organized them a bit differently. And then this thing is a quad belt stacker array. Simple stacker array, so you put 4 belts of 2 different shapes, you put 4 belts each in, and you get 4 stacked outputs right here. So, and then the final thing is these extractors I wanted to have a look at. I have 4 different extractors, and what these do is basically these are for resource management, right? So if you have, this would be a good shape. If you have a shape that consists of half a layer of one type, in this case squares, and half a layer of another type, in this case circles, then what these extractors can help me do is get either the squares from it or the circles or both. So this would be either or. This would be both. So if I fed that shape into this unit. Oh, by the way, let's demonstrate the throwback mod, right? This is how the throwback mod works. So if I go here now, I look at this and I press the backspace. Oh, I go here again. Well, I still have to figure out how it works. Actually, there's something with clicking a thing and then pressing the backspace button. It goes back to where you were before. That's the way it works. So back to our extractors, right? Where was I? Right. If I put in shape 2 of these belts of these shapes, then what I will get is a full belt of circles and a full belt of squares from it. That's what this one does. This one does the exact same thing, but it's a variation I wanted to try that uses combiners and laser cutters instead of stackers and regular cutters, right? So it's a slight variation. It's a bit more chunky, but I like the way it looks, to be honest. So yeah, that's that. And then I have this array right here, which I experimented with, which lets me select which corners I want to single out. So for example, if you input 1 belt, I could say I want just 1 corner, and then it will give me that 1 corner on one belt, and then, the remainder on the other belt. But I could also use that the exact same way as these other ones, to extract halves or potentially diagonals, etc. You should have seen this. I used it before. I just, modified it a bit with the new belt crossing units, and that is what that looks like. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do before we get to today's shape is talk about the hyperlink a bit, because the hyperlink is kind of interesting. It's basically a teleportation device. Let's just put it that way. What the hyperlink does, let's demonstrate this right away with this shape right here. What the hyperlink does is, still have to get used to my shortcuts. Where is it? There is the hyperlink. Let's put one here, shall we? And then let's extract some belts. So the hyperlink allows to extract or to put in 3 full belts of input, and then almost like a teleportation device, it will get them to an output of your choosing. So let's put this, let's put it here. And since you have 3 inputs, you can also get 3 outputs. Okay, now to be fair, one thing I have not tested is what happens if you put different inputs in, if this gets distributed equally, or one side comes out, the sides stay separated, stuff like that. I haven't tested that. Maybe that's something we could try this episode. Heck, let's do it right away. Let's see what happens. Now, with the hyperlink, there is a catch, because you need to connect your both units, right? You need to connect the input of the hyperlink, and you need to connect the output of the hyperlink. And there is a special piece for that, which is this actual hyperlink piece. That's what it's called, right? And you have to connect them just like you connect a regular belt. And the catch for your hyperlink is that these hyperlinks cannot cross. They can't cross each other, right? So this means that if I had some belt here and I wanted to put the hyperlink across, then I would have to maneuver that somehow. Like, for example, this, right? So the hyperlink is a piece that takes up space just like a belt does. Okay? Now, in the meantime, this means, by the way, that I could work with an infinity of hyperlinks, but if I put an input there and I put the output, let's say here, and I wanted to cross that, then I would have to start doing stuff like, maneuvering these things. Right? So for example, I would have to put an output here and then a new input there, for example, right? And only then I can place the new hyperlink. So that's kind of what it works like. I think I will use this hyperlink because the more we move ahead, the further we're going to be building our production machines from the hub, probably, and then we can use these hyperlinks pretty efficiently to get stuff transported. Now, let's have a look at how this thing distributes its inputs. Because right now, it's evenly spread. And that is, as I suspected, because we have full belts. So as soon as we stop having full belts, these just seem to get distributed randomly, just like a splitter. Right? So I could do this probably. Yeah, well, okay. It's not the same thing because the splitter can't handle 3 belts worth of input, but the principle, the distribution principle, is the same. It looks like. It is interesting to see that only 2 belts are used. So it seems like this thing perhaps takes a priority output. Is that the case? Interesting. Okay, so if I put straight through in, then straight through is coming out. So let's see what happens if we put green in. Okay, it will come out the straight way first. So that seems to be a priority output. It's just straight ahead. And if we overload that with more than one belt's worth, then it will start taking the, let's call it the left output, right? It would be taking this output as a secondary output. And then the right hand prong, let's call it a prong or whatever, the right hand output as a tertiary belt. Okay, well that's good to know, I guess. But in the end, in total, the capacity is 3 belts worth of stuff this one hyperlink line can transport. So that's kind of neat. That is kind of neat. So good. Now that we have tested that and we know how the hyperlink works, let's have a look at today's challenge, shall we? This is it, level 23, and this shape looks complex, doesn't it? Now, as I said, I have looked at this shape as to not bore you too much with analyzing it. And I wanted to make a few remarks. So let's have a look at this, this shape. It looks pretty complex. But one thing about this game is the more you advance and the more you start dabbling with floating layers, because this shape is also one that has floating layers, the more you will be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. When you look at a shape, you start to notice which parts are the key challenge, which parts form the challenge of the shape, and which ones are, you know, a peripheral, right, of secondary importance. And the more you move ahead, the more you, the deeper you get into this floating layer mechanism, the more you start to realize that the structure of the shape is what matters. And the actual shapes that you need, whether it be stars or windmills or circles or squares, or the colors that they're in, it doesn't really matter as much. Those start to become just mere parameters. Like, you know, it doesn't really matter. What you need to figure out is the structure. How do you need to fit the pieces together in order to obtain what you need? And for this shape, that key aspect is layers 2 and 3. That's where the floats are going to happen. Okay, so let's take an, if you don't see what I see here, then let's take an easier example, right? This will be for later. Let's go to the wiring layer, and let's take the trusty old logo shape from the regular base game, right? And its code is RUCW-RU. No, sorry. CW, and then dash 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 RU dash dash. That is the code, right? That gets us the basic logo that many of you will know from the source shape. Sorry, from the base shapes game. That's what I wanted to say. So let's compare that to this code, and let's get back to this thing. Put it on the side. So, what we need in this shape on layers 2 and 3, right? These are diagonals. And what these diagonals come down to is basically the following. Have a look at this. What we are going to need is this together with this rotated 180 degrees. That is what we need. if we do that, and then we bring these together again, we merge them. Oh, that's a painter. That's not going to work, you dummy. So, a stacker, and we merge that. Then we get this shape with 2 diagonals, just like we have here on layers 2 and 3. Right? And then this shape is sandwiched, so to speak, between layers 1 and 4, which we can do with a simple stack. So let's, for example, say that we are going to stack this on top of a red circle, and on top of the red circle we are going to stack another cyan windmill, right? Something like that. So this shape in structure corresponds exactly to this shape, right? That is pretty important as you move ahead through this game. That is kind of the important thing to figure out. So while this shape looks a lot more complex because it has the smelted elements in it and whatnot, and the colors are different, essentially these 2 shapes are the same shape, right? Their structure is the same, and that is what matters. So, since we have figured this out, here is what I thought the setup for today would be. I have already looked at this shape, as I said, and I figured that for one belt, I could work with these components. And the way we are going to put these components together will be as follows. Have a look. I decided to use the layer painter for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack this shape gray, and then I'm going to paint the layers with the layer painter. That will be my intention for today. That will be the setup. So look at what happens. We have these base shapes at the bottom, right? The way we are going to assemble them is as follows. This shape right here, which is half of a star and half of a square, we are going to combine that with itself, but rotate it 180 degrees, right? So let's try these shortcuts again. Yes, there we go. Let's combine that first so that we get a diamond shape. The diamond shape, we are going to split that in half. Right half, and then the left half, we are going to rotate 180 degrees so it also becomes a right half, right? Let's keep that there. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a full star shape and we're going to split it in 2, like so. One half gets rotated and it gets split again as follows. And that the left part of that, we are going to rotate that 180 degrees so it gets to the top right. The other one we're going to keep in the bottom right. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to take half of a square and we're going to cut it in half as well. So let's get the cutter in and we're going to cut that. We're going to make sure that this is in the bottom right corner, and now together with this star shape, which is also in the bottom right corner, we're going to combine that. So combiner in, and we get 1 quadrant of diamond. Okay? Next, what do we need? We're going to take a full circle shape, and we're also going to cut that in half. So cut. And then we're going to cut the circle again. The circle is going to be my scaffolding for the floating layers. Cutter goes in. And now we are going to stack our diamond piece in the bottom right with the bottom left circle. We're going to make this the bottom left as well, and we're going to stack that with the star as well. And these two together they also get stacked as to obtain this weird looking shape right here. Okay? We only need the right hand side of that because the left hand side is scaffolding. Therefore, cut it away, and now we have half of our shape, layers 2 and 3. Now we need the sandwich. Remember the sandwich? Do we still have it, or did I get rid of it? Yeah, I think I got rid of it. Doesn't matter. We have we have half of the sandwich, and now what we need is the diamonds stacked on layers 1 and 4. And that is exactly what we have left. So stack that here, stack that there. And we get half of a shape that corresponds to the thing we need. Basically, what I need to do now is do the same thing, but for the left-hand side. So we're actually, as a matter of fact, going to do the exact same thing, and then we're just going to rotate it 180 degrees at the end. So, diamond here. The diamond provides the first layer and the fourth layer. And on layers 2 and 3, we are going to create our floating pieces. So, therefore, cut this in half. Cut this in half. Combine these parts so we get the exact same thing we did before. And then we can stack that here. Stack that there. Stack it again. Yes, that's correct. And then split that in half. And now what we get is exactly the same thing. So all we need to do is rotate this one 180 degrees, or rotate them both 90 degrees. Stack that together. And then I think I didn't mention this yet. What I tested is whether you can smelt multi-layered shapes, and the answer is yes. So the approach I chose for today is that smelting is going to be the last part of it. It's going to be the very last thing we do. Boom. And now we have a gray version of our final shape, to which we will be able to apply the layer painter. Okay? That will be our setup for today. I am going to put a marker here. Let's call it cheat sheet, right? Or cheat, let's call it template. It sounds nicer than cheating. Template. There we go. Let's call this template, and every now and again we might have a look at that. And as a matter of fact, I already went ahead and prepared a spot on the map where I would have an abundance of these shapes, because I need 4 of them for one belt, and since I'm going to want 4 belts of output, it means I need 16 of these. And yeah, I found a spot on the map, and while I was at it, I already, got the extractors ready. So now the next thing I want to do is find spots on the map that have the other components we need, and then yeah, we'll take it from there. So a quick fast forward until we have all the assembled belts that we want for this. Here we go.